Howdy everybody, my name is Justin Searles and I come from a company called TestDouble. This is us, that's me laughing, that's one of our people, Matthew Boston. Would love if you would visit the site and learn more about us. Our blog, you may have run into it at some point, looks a little bit like this. And I'm here to talk about Ember, because I had a really hard time learning Ember, just like I had a really hard time learning Rails back in 2005. And the reason that I had a hard time is that it's a very convention-driven framework, and you need to understand the conventions, which I kind of view as magical incantations, before you can actually be productive. Now, the only way to learn how to write one little line that's going to have this outsized, huge impact on the behavior of your application is for somebody to tell you, or for a guide to tell you, or for a documentation to tell you. And Ember's guides are great. The API is pretty clear. The docs are pretty good. But what I was lacking was a friend to hold my hand to actually walk me through it. And what I'm finding is because Ember is a couple years old now, even though the API has changed a lot and the people who are very, very close to it, like on the core team, they understand it intimately. They're at this point of expertise now where it's difficult for some of them, or it has been difficult for some of them, to explain things to me like I'm just learning it. And I know what this is like because as an expert at certain things, like, say, JavaScript testing, I have a very hard time adopting the beginner's mindset and helping people who are at the beginning of their journey. So I can totally relate, and since I'm at the beginning of my Ember journey, I thought now would be a good time to just document a little bit about what I've been doing to get up and running on Ember and some of the foibles that we ran into early on. I'm going to do a new application from scratch, and I'm going to record this mostly just completely unedited, both because editing takes a long time, but also because I think it's valuable to see me screw up, and I hope that you'll bear with the mistakes that I make, but, you know, at least they're honest ones. So I'm going to make a new directory, and I'm going to call this thing Good Day. I think I'm going to make an app. I'm not totally sure yet, but I think I'm going to make an app that lets people at TestDouble, we're consultants and we bill on a weekly rate, but most time and material systems like Harvest, we use Harvest and we love Harvest, are all about billable hours. And so we're like, well, you know, we prorate to the nearest half a day, so you either worked a day or you worked half a day or you didn't work that day. That's really the only control we need. So something like Harvest, where we're entering the number of hours and across multiple projects, is just a little bit overkill. I'd really like to just reply to an email or something, or fill in a very, very little form saying, yep, I worked 5 out of 5 days, or 4.5 out of 5 days. So I'd like to make a little Ember interface that enters in that information and then posts back to the Harvest API ultimately, to commit my time sheets just with a simpler interface to respect the simple business model that we have. My app is obviously, if it's going to talk to Harvest, probably needs some kind of backend. So I'm going to create a Rails app as well as a Lineman application. Lineman is a front-end workflow and build tool system that's built on top of Grunt.js. You can learn more about it at lineman.js.com. And first things first, you'll need Ruby, you'll need Node.js installed. If you don't already have Ruby, there's lots of ways to get it, but it comes with Mac OS X. You can always use the system Ruby if you are brand new. But to install Node, just use the package installer. It's usually the best way to do it. So I'm going to gem install Rails, whatever's latest. I'm going to also install Lineman globally, which probably requires a sudo command. Lineman is a command line interface to a full-blown build system. And we have an Ember plugin, so we're going to use Lineman and Ember to build our front end, and it's going to proxy back to the Rails application. And gem install Rails will take the time that it takes. If I do edit this, it's going to be just for watching me download stuff, because that's less valuable. Although it's hilarious and enjoyable. We can have a little chat about the system we're going to build. I have no thoughts. I'm just totally shooting from the hip. Don't expect me to write any unit tests or integration tests. This is all just about trying to plug things together, because I think integrating new tools can be difficult, and seeing somebody actually do it is valuable. So I'm going to make a new app. I'm going to call it this one just client and server. So Lineman new client, and I'm going to have it skip the example files because I don't need them. All right. And then I'm going to skip into the client, and I'm going to install the Lineman plugin, Lineman Ember. So that's telling npm install, save this as development dependency, Lineman Ember plugin will get pulled down. If it's in your package.json, Lineman just knows, oh, I expect this plugin to be here, and it automatically configures your application as if it were an Ember application. So there's no other additional config that we should need to do of the tasks, but we do actually need to pull down Ember. Now, obviously, you could use Bower, you could use anything else you like. You could use curl. Theoretically, we could have this tool build this for you, but because Ember releases frequently, I like just downloading whatever the latest versions of stuff are. So I'm going to pull in Ember, handlebars, and jQuery. And I don't like having version specifiers on file names so that when I upgrade, I can see the git diffs really clearly. So I'm going to whack those. I'm also going to go get Ember Data, because I know I'm going to use that eventually. And there is a place where Ember's releases are stored. Aha. So Ember Data is not yet released. It's still a 1.0 beta. There we go. Last updated 2 months ago. And so I probably want to alt-click that to save it off. There we go. Oh, macOS done. Come on. All right. Open up my downloads directory. Drag it that way. Sweet. Some people like to live in the terminal, and I'm not really one of those people. I'm way too visual. Mea culpa. Okay, so I've got Rails 4.1 installed. Sweet, I've never used Rails 4.1. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to call it server, uncreatively, and I'm going to have it skip test unit, because I'm not going to write any tests. That'll do a bundle install of all of the Rails stuff. Over on the alignment side, I'm going to use Atom Editor for this, but my Atom Editor is still a little bit quirky. Things like strip whitespace aren't working, but I will manage. So if I look here, I got my dependencies. All I need to do is tell my Lineman project what order to load those files in. So here, this is a JavaScript file. It could just as well be a CoffeeScript file. I think I'm going to create or change it to be a CoffeeScript file. Whack that. Whack that. Kill that. Don't need that anymore because returns are implicit. Yeah, I'll just eyeball this. So I know that I want to override the file globs for JavaScript vendor stuff. By default, it's just ****.js in the vendor directory. But I want to specify specifically that, let's see, I don't even remember the correct load order. And first of all, of course, it's vendor.js. So I think that, darn it. I think that I need jQuery first, and then I want handlebars, and then I want Ember, and then I want Ember Data. Generally, order shouldn't matter for most of the files that I write in my application, so I don't use a package manager for my own stuff all that often. Sometimes I use Browserify. I like Browserify a lot. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it real simple and just rely on, concatenation of sources. Also whack this. I can confirm that my Lineman config is happy by using the Lineman config CLI command. I can say Lineman config files.js.vendor. Oh, something's not right. Unexpected token. Oh, right, because apparently when I rename a thing in Atom Editor, it just sometimes has a different opinion. Oh, cool. I like how that rename operation actually just copied the file and then left the original one there. I've had a lot of quirks so far with Atom Editor. Love the guys making it, though. They're all brilliant, and I love the idea, and I love making plugins, and in having a web inspector for my editor. That's all great. But it's pretty dang quirky. So I can see that my change actually seems to have worked here. Cool. I've created my Rails application that's warning me about the sort of hilariously named Spring gem not working. I'm going to tab over into the server. Okay, so what next? I guess the first thing that I want to do is I want to just run my Lineman project and see that I'm not getting any console errors. So when I say Lineman run, it'll do an initial build, but it'll set itself up in watch mode so that it's just continually listening to any file changes that I make. Okay. Remember, I skipped my example files. The fact that things aren't blowing up is a good sign. All right, pretty excellent. Yeah, so I can just sort of magically assume that that means Ember is happy. I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I think I might like something a little bit more visual just to really prove that out. So I'm going to pop over to my editor, and how should I do this? I'm going to make something fake entirely. Yes, why not? So I'm going to create a new thing called app.coffee. And there's a really cool Ember.js bin template that you can use when you're trying to, like, for example, if you run into an issue and you want to post that issue to GitHub or to the IRC chat, by far the best way to do it is to put together a minimal example on JSBin. That way that the people who manage the Ember team can, at a glance, they tend to use JSBin. I know there's a lot of tools for this, but at a glance they're able to suss out what exactly they're seeing and play with it. Ember is a complex enough framework that just saying, oh, my route's not working, is going to lead to like a lot of people just staring at you. And rightly so. I mean, it is complex, and that's not enough information to convey the issue. It's easy to get frustrated when people don't understand your problem, believe you me, but creating a minimal example is kind of, I think, the responsibility of the person who's learning. So it takes a lot of time, but I think it's worth it. Anywho, this is a JS bin that you get for free when you start it up, and most applications need a router, but I don't have any routes yet. Index route is a magical route in Ember. If you define a thing called index route, well, whether you do or not, the system will create a default index route for you. I'm not sure what, if anything, it does. And I want to extend now ember.route.extend, and then I have to pass extend something to invoke it, so model. And this method, this model method, every route, most routes, I guess, the routes that I write, they define what their model is, usually with like a find or a lookup, and then it returns a promise, and when that promise resolves, Ember knows to go do things. But you can just as well return boring, normal stuff here. So they've got red, yellow, blue. And I've got to figure that they probably have a handlebar. Now, one of the things in like lots of simple examples is you see this script tags embedded in HTML. And because we have Lineman as a build system, we don't have to do this. I would much rather just have my client-side templates all just work with separate files, so I can get things like syntax highlighting and so forth. So there's another magic name here. Application.hb is what it'll initially look for as the top-level view for your app. So I'm going to grab this, suck this up, have it be indented awkwardly. Okay, so step 1 complete. Step 2 is that there's another thing here, and it wants the name to be index. In general, all of the naming will coalesce naturally. Index route will create, I think, an index controller, an index view, and that view will be, by default, looking for an index template. Now, if you don't have any custom behavior, just like Rails, if you don't have custom behavior, you don't have to define constructs just for the sake of defining them. They will have default behavior. They'll get instantiated on their own with just, what the team believes are sensible defaults. All right, so I need to add a new file back into templates called index.hb. All right, so for each item in model, create a list item of that item. So what this should print is exactly what we see on the right here. So we should be able to prove out that our system is working by refreshing. Woo! All right. Like I said, this is unedited, so I'm planning on doing lots of debugging and lots of swearing at my screen. And if you need to fast forward through that, that's totally understandable. So I've got a basic Ember app apparently working. If I had a pair here, my pair would probably be saying, oh, time to commit, at which point I realize I don't even have a Git repo initialized. I like to use GitX so I can visualize what I'm staging really easily, again, being a total noob at terminal stuff. I'm a forever noob. So I've got a git ignore, a Travis YAML, a lot of this stuff, so I'm going to have all these default things from both. Oh, actually, I instantiated that in the client. I want to actually have one repo for both of these. So I'm going to go ahead and undo what I just did, kill that git, go up directory, init up at the top level, and now I'm going to do one big gigantic commit. Probably I shouldn't have made any changes at all. I'm going to commit Rails app plus Lineman app plus Ember hello world app all at once. So we're off to a good start. Let's let's see, what should we do next to continue the configuration? Now I want the Rails app and the Lineman app to play nicely together. So one thing that I could do to force that is, say this red, yellow, blue, I could return that from a route, and I could make like a little model using Ember Data. And that'll force me to go and want to talk to Rails, and if I want to talk to Rails, it'll force me to set up Rails Alignment, which is our plugin system that connects Rails apps and Lineman apps. That seems like a reasonable thing to want to do. So it's going to force me to create a whole bunch of other stuff here. I want to create a model for colors. So app.color is ds.model.extend, I think. And it's going to have some attributes like name, well, or only name. ds.adder is a string. So now I have a model in my system called color, and I'm going to want to return it by finding all of the colors in my collection on the server. So I want to do, let's see, store, which is going to be a variable that's on every route and every controller. The store is accessible. A default store is created for us. So I want to find all of the color singular, I want to say, I think. And what I should see now when I refresh is obviously not red, yellow, blue, but if I open up my inspector, and by the way, go and install the Ember inspector. It'll warn you here. It tells you what versions we're using. Just a heads up, we're using Ember 1.5, Ember Data 1.0 Beta is 7, Handlebars 1.1.2, jQuery 1.10.2. If you don't have the Ember extension installed, it will give you a URL to the Chrome store where you can install it. The Ember extension will very magically show you things about your application that are very cool. I don't spend as much time in this as I probably ought to. You can see here I've got no Ember data models. There's nothing interesting to see here. That will change once we get all wired up and working. So I refresh the page and I should see, aha, yes, a 404 to a thing called colors, because it's wanting to fetch my colors now, but there's no server-side route that returns colors. I could stub this out in Lineman and just return 3 colors. In fact, maybe let's just do that now so you can see what that looks like. So pretend that I am not going to immediately build a Rails app or connect it all. I could just as well define a server. Gosh, this rename sucks. Delete, delete. Okay, so this is all CoffeeScript. I could define a little server that's just for the purpose of serving out stubbings from Lineman. So I want to create a new little route, app get colors, and it's going, this is all the Express API. So it has a request and a response, and the response I want to send back is JSON, and let's say red, yellow, and green, changing the colors up, and killing all those frowning mustaches at the end of the file. Dum-dum-dum. And something tells me I probably, because I moved that file around, I probably have to restart Lineman. Lineman is not fantastic sometimes about watching the server stubbings change. Try that one more time. Missing right brace. Oh, right, shit. Kill that. I just assume it's not gonna, it'll need a restart. As the tool author of Lineman, I'm so used to developing Lineman against Lineman with Lineman that I restarted a little bit more aggressively than people typically have to do. No model was found for 0. Something tells me that because these aren't objects, this won't work. So I'm learning a little bit more now about what Ember expects from my API. It's totally legit. So first thing needs to have a name. They all need to have a name. Name red. Name yellow, and name green. So I can whack this. All right, and they probably all need IDs as well for it to actually work. No model was found for 0. All right, so I'm going to try again with IDs. ID 1, ID 2, and ID 3. No model was found for 0. Maybe it expects a Rails style root element. That's not going to compile. This will. Yep, and also the server apparently when you have non-compiling CoffeeScript will crash. Sorry about that. Should file a bug. Damn it. Now I got it. it's suddenly very nerve-wracking to be doing a screencast all live. So that broke the server again. The number of times I have to restart this is really sad. Sorry about that. Yeah, sweet. So it's pulling down my things when that promise resolves. Now I just need to update this guy so that he's not just printing off the item. This is, I think, what you would get if you inspected the element, calling Ember.inspect. If I go and I get my, let's say, app.color, this is one way to get the store, or not. I need to make it a global on the window. App coffee. Refresh the page. App.color.store is one way to get the store, and if I say store.record for ID, and I want a color, and I want 2, say, to get one of these colors back. So I think that was, I don't remember. I'll say yellow, maybe blue. So I'll say yellow, get name. Oh, nice, I guessed correctly. So that's one way to interrogate it, right? If I know the ID of something, I can go to the store, I can get the thing out of it, and then I can go start asking for its properties. But it doesn't really tell me much about what it is. In fact, the default Chrome inspector doesn't tell you very much useful stuff at all. It just calls it class and gives it an ID, says what the store is, which is also class, and its container is a container. It's not that helpful. And then this client-side ID that Ember generates. But you can call Ember inspect on anything. This is a thing that took me a while to figure out. And then now I can at least see, oh, it's a color, and its ID is 2. So at a glance, it's a little bit useful. Obviously, if I have the Ember inspector here, I can escape out of the console and I can click on data. I get much more robust, a table, and I can click on that yellow element, and I can see all of its stuff, and I can see its relationships. It's much nicer. And again, on the view tree, you can go and hover over the index and see exactly what those properties are on the auto-generated array controller that was apparently created when I have this index EHB doing an each. So, we're talking to a server, but it's not a Rails server, and we know really quickly that we want it to be a Rails server. Another thing we know we want to use is, because JSON API is pretty fantastic, we want to use JSON API, and the closest thing, to my knowledge, of a reference implementation for JSON API is Activemodel Serializers, which is up on GitHub here. Current version is 0.8.1. They've done a total rewrite, apparently, 0.9.0, but it's only on master, and I want to grab the thing from Ruby Gems because I'm lazy. So I'm going to open up in my server and just straight off the bat install Activemodel Serializers. Oh, apparently with Sublime Text. Oh, nice, I aliased it to Atom because I'm still in the habit of using Sublime Text. Let's see, let's kill things. So I'm not going to use jQuery Rails, I'm not going to use TurboLinks, I'm not going to use JBuilder, I'm not going to use SDoc. I'm also not going to write any CoffeeScript in my Rails application. I think I need Uglifier, however. I'm not going to use any Sass. SQLite, sure, whatever. I also really love killing comments that I don't care about. And I guess I'll use Spring, even though I don't really understand how Spring works. And boom. Well, you know what? I'll keep the debugger around. All right. So I want to add Activemodel Serializers. So I'll bundle the server up. That was quick. And now I need to start considering how I'm going to return some colors. Now I don't need to actually make a model. I could just stub this out at first and make sure I get the plumbing working. I think I'd prefer to do that. Having just deleted jQuery and Sass is probably going to break all sorts of stuff when I try to run the server. I can guess where that is, or I can just let the server blow up for me. So I'm going to let the server blow up for me. BE, by the way, is an alias for bundle exec on my system. All right, so I'm going to open up Chrome, go to port 3000 now. Riding some Rails. All right, well that didn't blow up. That's no fun. Let's make a controller, and we will call it the colors controller.rb class. Colors controller is a descendant of application controller, and we're going to just do the index method first. We're going to say render JSON of, well, I suppose 3 color methods. How to do this best. I can make some open structs. I can make a little class called color. I think I'm just going to make a class called color. So we'll have class dot class color dot new red, color dot new blue. That will certainly blow up because there's no colors yet. I'd like to see it blow up though. So if I go here, no route matches colors. So a couple things to do. So first I need to go to routes file, whack all the defaults, say resources colors. And then there's an uninitialized constant color because I don't have a class called color yet. So I'm going to go make one, file, color RB, class, color end, and you have an attr reader of name, and you take that name on initialize. Nice and boring. Wow. Okay, well that was quick. So that's using I believe it's using the built-in to JSON, but it might be generating a default serializer, but I can't know for sure. It looks like exactly the same output I would get. Also, I know that I need IDs. So I'll say ID and name for now. So we'll say that you are ID1, you are ID2. I know I want to use Activemodel Serializers, and I know that's going to require me to make a serializer. If not this, then at least really quickly. So let's create some serializers. There's a directory called serializers that needs to be here, and I could either make it myself or I could use the generator, and I've never used the generator, so I guess I'd like to try that. So let's see if we have Rails G serializer post. Nice. All right, so we'll just say Rails G serializer color. Someday I'll update Ruby gems and kill that stupid warning. So now I've got a serializers directory with color serializer, attributes being ID and name. Now this is going to whine because, well, rather than predict. Let's refresh. ID name 1. So let's make sure the serializer is actually doing something. I just remove ID. Yeah, it's not actually doing anything. So what do we have to do? Wish this was interactive so that folks could tell me the answer to my problems. Because I'm sure some of you are looking at this and you're like, dude, this is totally obvious. You suck. I know one way to do it would be to set each serializer to, I think called color, or no, probably a reference to the class. Let's try that out. Boom. All right. Presumably I named that correctly. Also, as fun as it is to bounce around. These are my colors. I thought it was called each serializer. Let's check the docs again. This is actually one of my favorite GitHub readmes. Every question I've ever had about serializers has come down to this readme. It's Activemodel Serializers is a very well readme project. Okay, so that didn't work. I know. I'll just keep restarting my server and pray that that fixes it. And if that works, I'll just be angry and lonely inside, like always. Aha! Yay! Cool. So, for whatever reason, I had to restart my server. So I'm going to go into the color now. If you have a active record object here, it because it's an active model, includes all the active model stuff. It'll have a method called read attribute for serialization. I could either include active model stuff here, or I could just implement this method myself. One way to implement it would be to just call instance variable get, or actually, no, I've got readers for these. I could just say send key, because I like parentheses. Let's see if that works. Boom! All right, so now I know I'm using my serializer. I kind of wonder whether or not I could kill this. I doubt it, though. Nope. I gotta actually tell it which serializer to use in the case of my Poro. I don't know how the registration works. All right, so I'm making pretty good progress here. I'm gonna add that ID back on. That was just to prove that I knew it was working. So weird. Other thing and def other thing and lol. Lol. All right, cool. So I know my thing's working. You can just assign any attribute you like. It's kind of like a presenter object of your. I really like that a serializer can be a piece of indirection. So you don't have to actually go all the way to your model when you just want something to show up on the screen or over your API, especially when you're stubbing stuff out and just starting. So now that that works, I'm going to rip out from my client project the server stubbing and try to actually phone home back to Rails. So I'm going to comment out this route, which will have the effect of breaking this, right? Because it'll return 400 again. Yep, 404. And to get these wired up, I'm going to have to install a new gem to the server side project and a new npm module to the client side project. So in my gem file here, I'm going to install a thing called Lineman. Nope, Rails Lineman. The thing it's in first, the thing that you're doing second. So Rails Lineman is the gem. And from the server here, I'll call bundle. Neat. From the node project, it's another plugin, just like Lineman Ember. So I'm going to say save dev Lineman Rails. The two of these work in concert to auto-configure both projects so that you can just proxy back to the Rails application with minimal effort. You can read a little bit more about it here at its very minimalistic site. The site was just like a one-off little page to learn about it. It was written by Derek Briggs from Neo. He's a fantastic designer. He's the Pixel Janitor on Twitter. So a little shout out to Derek. That's him right there. Go find him, follow him. He's a fantastic guy. He's really, really smart. Great front-end developer. So here we've got some instructions on what to do. The first thing that we have to do on the Rails side is we have to tell it where our Lineman project is. And one way we can do that is create an initializer. Another way is just to treat the application config as a dumping ground. So I'm going to do that. Again, with all the default comments everywhere. All right, it's not called my app. It's actually a directory up, and then it's called client. Check. And then to include our Lineman stuff, we stick it in your precompiled assets with everything else, but we namespace it under Lineman. So that means that when I create a new view, I just have to use a style sheet link tag and a JavaScript include tag like this. So how do I want to do that? I could just use the index route. I think I'd rather make a custom controller. So I'm going to make a controller called I don't know what I want to call it. Ember's controller, why not? All controllers have to be plural in the file name, even if it's a singular resource. It's a thing I continually have to relearn over and over again. Application controller end, and you need an index, and I need a route to point you to Ember's controller. And I want it just to be the root. So the root goes to controller Ember's action index, I think. I guess those can be symbols. And what else? What am I missing here? Yeah, there needs to be a view. So I need to create a folder here called Embers and a file index.html.erb so that I can drag these two dudes in here. And I should probably put those in content for so that they end up in the head, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to head back over, restart my Rails server, see what happens. Didn't blow up, that's a good sign. Restart my Lineman server, see what happens. All right, some additional info. gets printed out. Lineman app says it's mounting all the static assets that it generates from the JavaScript directory to JavaScript's alignment, because that's where in dev mode Rails will be searching for it. All the static assets it posts into the CSS directory will be also available from style sheets alignment. That way Rails will be able to find it after you proxy back. And we're proxying all of our API requests that the application makes back to Rails on port 3000. That means we want to develop against port 8000, and Rails is sort of the backstop behind our front-end application, which seems logical. Oh my god, that just worked? Wow. Well, alright. Huh. Okay. Gosh, I was not expecting things to go this well. So let's switch over to our client and actually make these render appropriately. I got kind of carried away earlier and forgot all about that. So index HB. Okay. You should be the item's name, not just the Ember object. Huzzah! All right. So what we just did in pretty decent time was we started a Lineman project, pulled down Lineman Ember, started a Rails project, pulled down Activemodel Serializers. Then we connected the two with Lineman Rails on the Lineman side and Rails Lineman on the Rails side. And so now at least we have our development environment set up that I can continue to work in Lineman, but I can make changes to the server over here. So for example, if I wanted to go into my controller, I could change this to neon green, which is obviously my favorite color, thanks to Test Double's branding. Neon green and red. Sweet. I can change stuff in my server, my front end can see it. It's that easy. Now this does other stuff. This has implications for when we go to production. When we're ready to go to production, all we say is rake assets precompile, and it'll build our Lineman project for us and put all of that into an asset path so that it's stored, versioned, fingerprinted with all of your Rails assets, referenced in its assets JSON file, or if you're on Rails 3, its assets YAML file. And it's treated just like any other asset, just does the build task by wrapping the rake assets precompile task. So it's a way to sidestep 90% of your usage of the assets precompile and really just only performs any action at all on the built compiled Lineman assets. And you can set up fonts and other arbitrary static assets in the Lineman application too, and if you're interested in keeping the Lineman application its own discrete thing that can just be deployed against any arbitrary backend. But for now, I think I'm pretty happy, and I think I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for joining me on step 1. Step 2 will be ripping out some of this, color nonsense and actually building the first steps of our real application, not just the plumbing. So, of course, I'm going to look at what I need to commit here and just say get Rails plumbing, Rails plus Lineman plumbing working. All right, sweet. And then a whole bunch of other changes. I'm on a detached head. How'd that happen? Wow. All right, cool. Oh shit. Right. So I opened getx off the client object directory. So let me go up a directory. I'm here. There we go. That's more like it. And somehow the server stuff never came along. And somehow this is all screwed up. Well, that's fantastic. I am going to just hand wave all of this away. Start all over again, because even though I've been using Git for 6 years, I'm still a total novice, apparently. Git init. Getx. All right. Well, now it's an initial client plus server with Rails and Lineman integration, and also Ember. All right, excellent. I'm going to post this video, post this repo someplace, and then put together a little blog post that connects that, as well as all the links that I talked about in this episode. Thanks a lot, and I hope to continue this. And if you like it, subscribe or tell me that you'd like me to continue this, because I'm really busy and I tend to get distracted easily. So if I hear back from you that this is a valuable thing to iterate on, let me know, and I'll be more likely to spend the time doing it. So take care, and good luck with everything on Ember. By the way, if you do get lost, I strongly encourage you to hop onto the Ember.js IRC. It's up on Freenode. It's called Ember.js, and you can learn more about ways to get connected. Folks on the IRC are donating a lot of their time in they don't have to be doing it, but they're always very helpful. So if you respect the commitment that they're making to the community by helping out total strangers on the web, they will do everything that they can to help you, I'm sure. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.